Most chefs don't weaponize their dishwashers, but most chefs don't serve dinner during interstellar sieges. The first explosion rattled the Meridian Embassy just as Lars Andersson adjusted the microgreens on his third appetizer. Crystal stemware rang against bone china. The hollandaise sauce rippled. Lars steadied his hand and continued plating. 18 minutes until service. The Wellington rested at the right temperature. The reduction had reached perfect nappe consistency, and Tommy had finally stopped burning the Brussels sprouts. A normal Tuesday evening at the diplomatic mission, except for 3 Korvani warships in orbit and a peace treaty balanced on a knife's edge. He'd survived 3 Michelin-starred kitchens, a divorce, and Gordon Ramsay's personal mentorship program. Korvani military vessels were Tuesday afternoon traffic compared to a dinner rush at Le Bernardin. Chef? Tommy's voice cracked like an adolescent's. What the hell was that? Construction crew, probably. Lars wiped a smudge from the plate's rim. City's been upgrading the traffic grid all month. The lights flickered once, twice. Emergency power hummed to life, though they usually don't work this late. Through the service window, he could see Ambassador Kane pacing the dining room. The human delegation sat rigid in their formal wear, while the Korvani diplomats whispered among themselves in their clicking, musical language. A properly set table is a peace treaty, Lars thought. Everyone has their place, everyone gets fed, nobody leaves hungry. The kitchen's communication panel erupted in static. All staff, this is Ambassador Kane. We have a situation. Her voice carried the calm of someone delivering bad news. The embassy is under siege by Korvani military forces. This is not a drill. Tommy dropped his whisk. Hollandaise sauce splattered across the cutting board. Should we evacuate? Lars caught a falling sauté pan with one hand, while checking his Wellington's internal temperature with the other. 142 degrees, needs 3 more minutes. He looked up at his sous chef. 23 years old, fresh from culinary school, still believed that cooking was about following recipes instead of controlled chaos. We've got 18 VIPs upstairs expecting dinner in 15 minutes. They're not leaving without it. But we're under attack! By Korvani military. Lars seasoned his reduction, tasted it, nodded approval. The same people we're supposed to be making peace with tonight. Half our guests are Korvani diplomats who look as confused as you do, he shrugged. Either this is a rogue operation trying to sabotage the treaty, or it's the galaxy's most poorly planned coup. A second explosion shook the building. Closer this time. Emergency lighting bathed the kitchen in red. Through the reinforced windows, Lars could see armored figures moving across the embassy grounds. Professional soldiers, not terrorists. Professional equipment and professional murder on their minds. Chef, Tommy's voice was barely a whisper. What do we do? Lars considered this while checking his mise en place. The braised ribs gleamed like mahogany. The sides were ready. The dessert needed only final plating. His kitchen remained perfect despite the chaos blooming around them. Everything is just applied chemistry, he reminded himself, and chemistry is just applied problem solving. First, he said, pulling up the building's environmental systems on his control panel, we're going to finish dinner service. His fingers moved across the interface. Temperature controls, ventilation, water pressure, waste management. The embassy's designers had integrated everything through a single system, probably thinking it would make maintenance easier. They'd been right, just not in the way they'd intended. Then we're going to deal with whoever's stupid enough to interrupt it. The building's intercom crackled with a new voice. Gravelly, military, annoyed. All personnel, this is Commander Rex of the Korvani Third Fleet. You are harboring war criminals. Surrender the human delegation, and no one needs to be harmed. Lars paused mid-motion. War criminals? That's Ambassador Kane. She's been negotiating this peace treaty for 8 months. Maybe the Korvani changed their minds about the whole peace thing? Tommy's hands shook as he attempted to continue prep work. Or maybe someone doesn't want peace. Lars pulled up the dishwashing system diagnostics. Industrial-grade equipment, capable of producing superheated steam at over 200 degrees Celsius, more than sufficient for sanitizing plates. Also more than sufficient for other applications. Tommy, start the coffee service and get the dessert plates warmed. I need to handle our uninvited guests. What are you doing? Basic hospitality. Lars rerouted the steam system through the building's maintenance ducts and activated emergency venting protocols. Every good host knows how to handle party crashers. Through the service window, he watched security personnel herding the diplomatic delegations toward the reinforced conference room. Ambassador Kane spoke into her communicator, while the Korvani diplomats gestured wildly, definitely not part of whatever military comedy was unfolding outside. 30 seconds later, the first screams echoed through the building's comm system. The steam traps had found their targets. Lars smiled. Problem efficiently solved. Perimeter secured. Are you weaponizing the dishwasher? I'm eliminating biological contaminants from the kitchen service area. Lars returned to his plating. The steam system is designed to destroy unwanted organisms. Uninvited soldiers qualify as unwanted organisms. Commander Rex's voice returned. Horser now. You have 10 minutes to comply. After that, we start with the kitchen staff. Tommy went pale. Chef, they're threatening us specifically. Kitchens are always the first target in a siege. Lars adjusted the flame under his sauce, testing its consistency. Control the food supply. Control the people. Basic military strategy dating back to Alexander the Great. He glanced at his environmental controls again, mind calculating atmospheric pressure differentials and airflow patterns. Fortunately, they're thinking like soldiers, not like chefs. What's the difference? Soldiers think about taking territory, chefs think about controlling systems. Lars began cycling through the building's sensor network, tracking heat signatures and movement patterns. 12 armed figures in the main lobby, 6 moving through the administrative wing, 4 more attempting to breach the service entrance, where they'd recently discovered the therapeutic benefits of industrial steam cleaning. Peace negotiations and dinner service, he mused, watching the tactical display. Both could be ruined by bad timing and burnt offerings. Tommy, I need you to grab the molecular gastronomy kit and that case of dry ice we use for tableside presentations. What are you planning? Elementary chemistry. Nitrogen displaces oxygen. Dry ice sublimates into carbon dioxide, which also displaces oxygen. Properly applied, they create localized atmospheric conditions that make sophisticated equipment unreliable and decision-making questionable. Tommy stared at him like he'd announced plans to flambe the ceiling. You're going to suffocate them? I'm going to give them a mild case of hypoxia, just enough to make their targeting systems unreliable and their tactical thinking flexible. Lars checked his watch service in 6 minutes. But first, I need something with broader coverage. He looked at his spice collection, hundreds of containers arranged with military precision, each one a potential weapon in the right hands. His gaze settled on the industrial-sized container of paprika and the oversized pepper grinder. Beautiful. Change of plans, Tommy. Forget the nitrogen. Bring me that pepper grinder and all the paprika we have. Paprika? Capsaicin affects mucous membranes and respiratory function. Paprika contains concentrated capsaicin. The building's ventilation system is specifically designed to distribute airborne particles evenly throughout the structure. Lars pulled up atmospheric controls and began calculating airflow patterns with the precision of a NASA engineer. I'm going to create an aerosol suspension of capsaicin particles using our own ventilation system. Same principle as tear gas, but sourced from my pantry. Tommy stared at him. You're going to pepper spray the entire building? I'm going to season it. The intercom crackled again. 5 minutes. We know you can hear us. Lars triggered emergency air circulation protocols and began feeding finely ground capsaicin into the intake system. The building's atmosphere management system hummed to life, distributing his spice blend throughout the structure. Within 90 seconds, anyone without proper respiratory protection would experience discomfort. Within 3 minutes, they'd be functionally incapacitated. He plated the last main course. Tommy, coffee service. Now, what about our people upstairs? Conference room has independent air filtration. They'll be fine. though they might notice a slight spice scent. Lars caught Ambassador Kane's eye through the service window and received a thumbs up. Someone had briefed her on the kitchen's defensive capabilities. The building's atmospheric system chimed softly as capsaicin reached optimal distribution. The sound of energy weapons decreased, replaced by explosive coughing and angry multilingual cursing. Atmospheric seasoning deployed, Lars announced over the intercom. All personnel with proper respiratory protection may resume normal operations, Commander Rex's voice returned, racked with coughing fits. What? What did you do? Basic crowd control using kitchen-grade capsaicin derivatives. Nothing fatal, just unpleasant for anyone without appropriate breathing apparatus. Lars checked his watch. 2 minutes to service. You have 60 seconds to withdraw before I move to more advanced culinary countermeasures. More advanced? Tommy whispered. Lars was already moving toward his sulfur compounds, garlic extract, onion powder, certain preservatives. Ever hear of hydrogen sulfide, the rotten egg gas? Among other applications, yes. It's also a respiratory paralytic at sufficient concentrations, he began measuring. We use sulfur compounds for flavor enhancement all the time. Combine them correctly, and you get a gas that's immediately recognizable and highly effective at encouraging people to leave. Is that safe? In small doses, it's just unpleasant. In larger doses, Lars shrugged. Let's hope they're smart enough not to find out. The intercom exploded with more coughing. This is chemical warfare. This is dinner service with enhanced security protocols, Lars replied, his tone as calm as if he were describing wine pairings. You're welcome to withdraw and avoid further culinary interventions. He was preparing the hydrogen sulfide mixture when the building's communication system lit up. Multiple Korvani military frequencies, all demanding explanations, authorization codes, and Commander Rex's immediate justification for attacking a diplomatic mission. Ambassador Kane's voice cut through the chaos. Commander Rex, it appears your own high command is questioning your authority here. Perhaps you'd like to explain why you're assaulting a diplomatic mission during active peace negotiations. A long pause. Then Rex's voice, less confident now. The intelligence was confirmed. War crimes were committed. Justice must be served. Whose intelligence? Kane's tone could have frozen helium. Because I'm looking at communications from your own military command, and they seem surprised to learn about your little field trip. Lars continued his preparation while listening to the exchange. He'd worked enough high-pressure kitchens to recognize the sound of someone realizing they'd been played. Commander, Kane continued, I'm going to suggest that someone fed you false information to sabotage these peace talks. The question is whether you're going to compound the error by continuing this attack, or whether you're going to stand down and help us figure out who's really behind this. Another pause. Lars used the time to complete his hydrogen sulfide preparation and queue it up in the atmospheric system. Insurance policy. All units, stand down. Rex's voice finally came over the intercom, defeat heavy in every syllable. Maintain perimeter but cease offensive operations. Tommy sagged against the prep counter. So we're safe? We're safe. Ish. Lars began plating the dessert course. Molecular chocolate spheres that would burst with flavor on the tongue, each one a tiny miracle of applied chemistry. But we still have dinner service to complete, and our guests have been waiting 53 minutes. Unacceptable delay. The next 2 hours passed in controlled chaos. Embassy security worked with the chagrined Korvani soldiers to identify whoever had provided the false intelligence. Lars served all 6 courses with only minor timing adjustments, his kitchen operating like a Swiss chronometer despite the diplomatic crisis swirling around them. The Korvani diplomats were effusive about the modified sauce, unaware that their preferred fermented grain alcohol had been mixed with mild sedatives from the embassy medical supplies. Just enough to keep everyone calm and cooperative during crisis resolution. Food brings people together, Lars reflected, watching both delegations share conversation over dessert. It's the most basic form of diplomacy. Ambassador Kane appeared in the kitchen as Lars completed his final equipment check. Interesting evening. Chef, standard Tuesday service with enhanced security protocols. Lars wiped down his cutting board, every motion automatic after 20 years of professional cooking. The braised ribs were slightly overcooked due to timing constraints, but overall quality remained within acceptable parameters. The peace treaty was signed 40 minutes ago. Both delegations agreed that shared adversity helped them recognize their common interests. Shared adversity and properly executed cuisine. Lars hung up his apron. A good meal creates temporary peace. Tonight we made it permanent. What you did tonight? What I did tonight was serve dinner to 18 guests during a minor security incident. Lars checked the walk-in freezer temperature one final time. Perfect, as always. Though I would recommend upgrading the building's atmospheric controls. The current system has some interesting capabilities that might be worth exploring for future hospitality needs. Ambassador Kane's smile could have powered the embassy's lighting grid. I'll make sure that gets added to the maintenance notes, along with a recommendation for your promotion. Lars nodded and headed for the staff exit. Behind him, Tommy was still staring at the atmospheric control panel like it might reveal the secrets of the universe. Chef? Tommy called after him. How did you know all that stuff about chemical compounds and atmospheric systems? Lars paused at the door, considering the question. Outside, the Korvani ships were departing orbit, their running lights fading against the stars. Embassy security filed incident reports. Another successful dinner service at the Meridian Embassy. The fact that it had also prevented an interstellar war was just professional pride made manifest. 20 years in professional kitchens, Tommy? You learn that everything is just applied chemistry, and chemistry is just applied problem solving. He adjusted his jacket. Same skills, different applications. A kitchen is a laboratory, a battlefield, and a theater all at once. Tonight we just had a larger stage. He left Tommy standing in the pristine kitchen, still shaking his head at the capsaicin residue in the ventilation filters. Tomorrow, Lars decided he'd order extra paprika. And maybe invest in some military-grade respirators for the staff. In the diplomatic business, you never knew when you might need proper seasoning.